So, there are many legendary drives throughout the long history of F1. Ones that come to mind is Senna's win in Brazil in 1991 or Jensen Button's win in Canada in 2011, and there are many more. These are all races that for one reason or another, the driver had to overcome monumental challenges, all while racing against the greatest racing drivers on the entire planet, which is no small task. However, in my opinion, the greatest racing performance to this date has to be Daniel Ricciardo's redemption drive at the legendary Monaco Street Circuit, one of the 3 gems in the racing Triple Crown. Now, in order to understand just how truly amazing and special Daniel's win in 2018 was, we need to flash back a little bit to 2016. See, at this time, Daniel Ricciardo had already proven himself in Red Bull machinery, having beat the legend Sebastian Vettel back in 2014, also winning his first 2 races as well. So Red Bull knew they had a stellar driver on their roster. Come 2016, Red Bull wasn't exactly in the running for the championship, and eyes weren't really on them, as the championship battle between Nico Rosberg, who, fun fact, beat Lewis Hamilton in equal machinery in 2016, and Lewis Hamilton was starting to heat up very quickly. However, people knew that Red Bull definitely didn't have a slow car, it just wasn't going toe-to-toe with a dominant Mercedes. This changed at the 6th round of the championship, which took the teams to what is possibly the most historic and legendary track for F1, Monaco. Now, even if you don't know F1, you know this track. It's been shown in movies like Cars 2, you know, the weird one where Mater had an accident and the one lady car somehow learned how to fly, and the one Iron Man movie as well, among a whole list of others. It's also home to what is probably the coolest safety car of all time, this Countach. And now we have Mercedes and British Mercedes. Wow. Alright, I mean, to be fair, that Aston Martin F1 edition is really cool. I would definitely buy one. Anyways though, Monaco is one of the 3 gems in the racing Triple Crown, the other 2 being the 24 Hours of Le Mans and the Indy 500. So this race has tremendous prestige and is definitely on the checklist of every driver to win, which is not easy. This track is unique for a multitude of reasons. First off, it quite literally takes up the entire country of Monaco, as Monaco is a micronation. Because of that, it's a street circuit, and it is the shortest circuit on the F1 calendar, and also widely considered one of the most difficult to race on, as turns are sharp and narrow, and with little to no runoff areas, if you make a mistake, you will not be forgiven. Because of the unforgiving nature and the fact that it's on public roads, it's not only difficult just to race, but to pass as well, as this is notorious as being a track where passing is almost impossible. To put it into perspective, at the 2021 Monaco Grand Prix, there was 1 pass on track the entire race. That's 78 laps with just 1 pass. It occurred when the second coming of Jesus Christ himself, Nikita Mazepin, passed the big Schumacher on the opening lap, and that was it. Now, with all that stacked against the drivers, it's no wonder that a win here is a massive deal. So coming into the 2016 Monaco Grand Prix, the top teams of Mercedes and Ferrari were looking for a win, with Red Bull definitely in the topic of conversation, but no one actually thought they were going to have a decent chance of winning. So it came as a shock when during free practice 2, Daniel topped the timesheets and was looking damn fast compared to the top dogs at Mercedes, who had also won the previous year. So when qualifying came around, everyone, myself included, all of our jaws absolutely dropped when Daniel Ricciardo not only beat the Mercedes, but beat the closest one by 0.2 of a second. Keep in mind, like I said before, this is a super short track, so that 0.2 is so much more impressive. So he would start the race on Sunday on pole, and remember, like I said, passing here is damn near impossible on a good day. So as long as he could get the pit stops down and put in good laps, his win would be all but secured. So on Sunday, the lights went out and they were off. Daniel was doing his job and putting in extremely solid laps, maintaining his lead and making sure to keep the Mercedes at bay. During the first round of pit stops, Daniel lost his lead to the Mercedes driven by Lewis Hamilton, but it was okay because his next pit stop was going to be a quickie, and he was going to be on softer tires than the Mercedes, so he could put in quicker laps than the Mercedes. Quick sidetrack. In F1 and most racing series, the softer the tires, the faster the car will go, but the quicker the tire will wear away, so you will have to do more pit stops. Anyways though, Daniel got right up Hamilton's ass and was pressuring him hard, so Hamilton was called into the pits, and Daniel worked up a serious lead, enough so that even when he stopped next, after the pit stop he would still be ahead, and he gets to his pit box and there's a massive problem. The tires aren't ready to be put onto his car.
Ricciardo is sat there waiting.
So he sat there waiting and waiting and waiting for his tires to finally arrive, and they did. The mechanics threw them on his car as fast as they could, and he booked it out of there. And once he exited the pit lane, he was neck and neck with Hamilton, but after turn 1, Hamilton was ahead, and that was that. Through no fault of his own, after essentially doing everything perfectly down to a T, he managed to nab second place. It later turned out that the reason for it was because the tires he needed for his pit stop were at the back of the pit garage, and the mechanics were unable to retrieve them in time. But quick sidetrack, this whole race was kinda weird. Sergio Perez nabbed 3rd in a Force India after starting 7th, and Fernando Alonso in a McLaren Honda got 5th place. Just a really wild result. That's pretty cool though still. Anyways, post-race, Daniel was fuming. I'm surprised his head didn't just explode from sheer rage, but that wasn't his last bout in Monaco. See, 2 years later, F1 would make its annual return to the streets of Monte Carlo. And to be honest, not much had changed in terms of the pecking order from 2016 to 2018, but that wasn't known at the time. See, at the time, everyone thought that the title was a three-way battle, as Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes were going into this round damn close to each other in the championship. Everyone thought they were pretty level in terms of competition. However, shortly after this race, Red Bull wasn't really able to keep up with Mercedes and Ferrari in the championship, and Ferrari's entire season went to shit after Vettel binned it at the German Grand Prix. And surprise, surprise, Mercedes won another championship. Back to Monaco though. Red Bull was looking about as strong as Mercedes, the favorites going into the first free practice session, and it was looking like it was going to be a close battle between them all weekend. That was until the first session actually began, and Daniel Ricciardo and his Red Bull began absolutely stomping the competition, with his teammate, now two-time world champion Max Verstappen, following close behind him in every session. Come free practice 3 though, Max binned it hard enough that the damage to his car was terminal, meaning he wouldn't have the chance to qualify. So all of Red Bull's hopes laid on the shoulders of the Aussie, and he put in the work, absolutely churning up a storm behind the wheel, and by the end, he had done it again. He managed to get his Red Bull to qualify first and broke the all-time track qualifying record while doing so. So they lined up on the grid on Sunday with his former teammate Vettel lining up with his Ferrari right behind him in second. So long as Red Bull could make sure his pit stops were okay, he would have a very serious shot at winning. So the race began and he charged out and built up a pretty massive lead. On lap 17, Ricciardo went in for his scheduled pit stop and it went off without a hitch, as the closest competition in the Iceman, Kimi Raikkonen, in the second Ferrari was 15 seconds behind him. An absolutely massive lead for Monaco. However, this is where the story gets wild, so stick with me. On lap 28, right after passing through the famed tunnel, he reported to his race engineers that he was losing power
as well.
Losing power.
Which later turned out to be his MGUK. Quick sidebar, on an F1 car, the MGUK stands for Motor Generator Unit Kinetic, which in very basic terminology is a piece of equipment that helps recover kinetic energy that would otherwise be lost when you brake, and helps recharge the hybrid powertrain on the V6 F1 engines. So with the loss of that, he lost a whole quarter of his power, and for all my F1 fans out there, keep in mind at the time Red Bull was running Renault engines, which were known for being underpowered and extremely unreliable, so losing a quarter of that power was the absolute last thing he needed. Smelling blood in the water, Ferrari and Mercedes gave their drivers the hurry up to chase down Ricciardo and pass him, and if all of that wasn't enough, it gets even worse, as he lost 2 of his 8 gears, meaning he only had 6 drive gears. So just to keep track, he has only roughly 675 horsepower compared to the Mercedes and Ferrari 1000. Only 6 out of his 8 gears, and 2 4-time world champions chasing him down like the wounded animal he was. This is where the ultimate drive comes in, because for 50 laps, yes, 50, he managed to defend in a way that most skilled drivers can only dream of doing, parking his car in just the right places, even with Sebastian Vettel right up his gearbox. He managed to hold him off on arguably the most difficult F1 circuit on the calendar today. He was losing up to 9 seconds a lap compared to Vettel and Hamilton, which for those who don't know, most laps are measured in tenths and hundredths of a second. If you're losing more than half a second a lap compared to another car, it usually means you have absolutely no hope of catching them. So 6 to 9 seconds per lap is insane. However, once the checker flag waved on the final lap, he crossed the line exhausted, but in first place, which is all that mattered. He earned every bit of that win, and you could tell what it meant to him. He went from incomprehensible rage in 2016 to unbridled joy in 2018, with a grin a mile wide. Afterwards, as per usual, since Lewis Hamilton didn't get his way, he complained that, and I swear this is a real quote, it was one of the most boring races he had ever raced in. I don't know what race he was racing in, but it was one of the most thrilling and nail-biting races to have ever happened in my memory. This is, in my opinion, the greatest drive to have ever happened at an F1 race, at least that I can recall. But what do you think? What's your favorite F1 race of all time? Let me know down below.